The Ozempic hype is starting to wither, replaced with the reality that it and similar drugs are very risky.
The way in which Ozempic works to combat weight gain or to help to facilitate weight loss is through a pathway that I'm not a huge fan of.
Introducing Lucas Aoun,
Australia's #1 biohacker.
An educator of all health info, which you'll struggle to find on Google.
When people use Ozempic, one of its mechanisms is that it can actually freeze the stomach. It's called gastroparesis. Another pathway is that it actually can make you disgusted by food. When doctors prescribe the medication, they warn the patient that it's potentially a medication they'll have to stay on for a very, very long time. It's almost like a lifelong commitment.
Is Ozempic a substitute for good nutrition and exercise?
Absolutely not.
Do you know much about the rebound rates off Ozempic?
It's still very, very high. It's like 60 to 70%.
So if someone is like, well, I just want to regulate my appetite, I can't stop eating, what are your 3 top tips?
First of all, increasing the intake of a certain type of fiber. There's a particular fiber that I absolutely love, and it's not psyllium husks. Let's say I put 3 teaspoons in this water bottle and I shook it up, it would fully dissolve and you wouldn't even know it's there. And you've just added 15 grams of fiber to your water. Not many people really talk about this, and it's called...
Guys, welcome back to the Chill on This podcast. I am so excited to have this guest and also to be discussing this topic because it is a hot topic right now. And if you're wondering what we're talking about, it is Ozempic. I have Australia's leading biohacker with me here today to share everything about Ozempic, if it works, if it doesn't, what are the side effects, who should be taking Ozempic, who shouldn't be taking Ozempic. So I've got a lot of questions and I really want to dive deep into this one. So Lucas, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, and I'm stoked to be here and looking forward to chatting all things Ozempic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more. I know a bit on Ozempic, but I just want to hear it from your opinion and just share some insights and hopefully some valuable information to our audience. Because I know that the question that everyone is asking, should I take Ozempic or should I not? How do I lose weight? So can't wait to dive deep into this topic. So let's start with you just walking us through your journey into biohacking. Firstly, what is biohacking? Because I don't even think I know what biohacking is. So tell me what biohacking is, your journey into biohacking, and what led you to explore treatments like Ozempic.
Yeah, so that term biohacking is basically just about health optimization. So that's how can we harness nutrition, lifestyle, managing exercise, and different stress components to optimize our overall biology. So that term biohacking doesn't mean you're inserting a chip into your arm or anything like that.
Sounds like it.
It's actually very applicable to many people's daily lives, and so it's just something that I sort of fell in love with as I was playing professional soccer. I was always interested in ways to optimize my performance on the soccer field. How can I improve my awareness or my decision making or accelerate recovery? And then I just, fell in love with that whole idea that we can hijack our biology to our favor. And so that's really, it sounds crazy, but I'm actually not. I'm just probably like yourself, who also engages in regular things to optimize your health.
So what are these regular things that you do to biohack your day or your life?
Yeah, well, we can start out with one of my favorites, which I got at the start of lockdown. I got myself a treadmill desk.
Oh, yep. I actually recall our meeting when we were just doing a brief on this episode. You were on your treadmill, your walking pad. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
You walk and take your meetings on there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's that's something that I incorporated pretty much after every main meal. I'll just go on the walking treadmill desk because I know that that's going to have a positive effect on my post-meal blood sugar spike.
Interesting.
So that's it's a basic biohack. It's nothing fancy. Some of the other things that I do, I wear those blue light blocking glasses before bedtime. I don't know if you've seen those.
I have seen those. They've been around for maybe a couple of years now.
Yeah, I would say I was an early adopter.
A beta user.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So on the walking pad, has that has that improved like just your mental clarity or anything to do with just like how your brain functions when you do work? Because I know that, you know, there is a lot of talk about walking and taking meetings and how it just sparks your creativity and your creative juices to flow better. Have you felt like that's improved mental clarity for you?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, like creativity, mental clarity. I mean, the first thing I do in the morning is I try and like wake up and get those steps in before my first meal, and I feel like I'm like energized. I have better, you know, mental clarity and just feel better overall. And then in terms of like body composition, like I mean, getting your steps in, getting your daily steps in, you just drop body fat.
It is the most underrated movement that you can ever do. Like, it's crazy how many calories you actually burn if you like just walk more in your day. Like if you do 10,000 steps a day, I think it's like an extra, depending on like your weight, your height and so on and your age, you can add on an extra 300 to 500 calories that you're burning to your day just from walking.
Yeah.
It's so easy and it's so like therapeutic. So how many steps do you do a day?
I aim for, my goal is 20K.
Wow. Do you think that that's realistic?
So I'd say for
the everyday person.
For the everyday person, that can be challenging, like if they don't have a treadmill desk. But I'd say like if you aim for like 12 to 15, like if you can keep to that routine like consistently, that's going to yield some really favorable effects on like your biology and your health. Like there are huge benefits. Since I started doing the 20,000 steps, I've definitely been a lot hungrier.
Oh yeah, you're burning so many more calories.
Yeah. So I definitely don't hold back on like my favorite foods and my, you know, lots of carbohydrates.
Should never hold back on your favorite foods.
Exactly. So yeah, that's like one of the biohacks I've been pretty fascinated with. And you got the blue light blocking glasses, and then you've got a whole range of different supplements. So that's like my forte, because I worked in my dad's pharmacy when I was younger, had a lot of experience understanding vitamins, minerals and supplements. And yeah, I started experimenting and playing around with so many different like herbs, different supplements, different compounds, peptides, all sorts of like things that could enhance my
Did you just
performance.
test them all on yourself?
Yeah, so I was pretty ruthless from the ages of like 19 to about 23. I was pretty like, I'm going to test every compound under the sun just to get an idea, like to marry up what it says on paper with how I actually feel.
What was the most surprising?
The one that I love the most and the one that I've stuck with the most has been the amino acid taurine. Are you familiar with?
Oh yeah. It's actually really good for reducing cholesterol and just overall good health. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's found in Red Bull. So I want people to just not think that Red Bull's like, that's an unhealthy ingredient.
But also don't take this as like, I'm going to drink all the Red Bull in the world.
Yeah, do not do that. But yeah, I take like 3 grams of taurine every day, and it's so beneficial for like keeping you calm, because it's like.
Okay, I think I've got it mixed up with something else, to be honest, because does taurine actually like help with reducing cholesterol? Am I referring to something else?
You might be thinking of another amino acid maybe.
No, I don't know. Sounded the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What else? What would you say your top 3 supplements you would recommend are?
Top 3 at the moment would be, so like consider adding in taurine, like just for general anti-stress, anti-anxiety properties, like keeping you calm. Most people can do really well with a magnesium supplement.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to get your RDI of magnesium through diet alone. So that's why a magnesium supplement, magnesium L-threonate is the best form, or magnesium glycinate.
Yeah.
They're like the 2 of the best forms. And then creatine, as we spoke about before, most people think, and those that are listening in, when we look at creatine, it's not just for muscle growth. Like it's far beyond that. It's good for brain health, you know, and enhancing short-term memory, things like that.
Apparently, like most recent studies are also showing how it's good for gut health as well. So very interesting. I'm actually going to buy myself some creatine because it's a lot of people are talking about it now. So just want to see the effects on myself. Yeah. Well, let's that's such a great segue for us to start talking about Ozempic. So let's just start with like, what is Ozempic? How does it work? How is it administered? So tell me just about Ozempic in general.
So Ozempic is a pharmaceutical medication that is prescribed for type 2 diabetes. And its main objective or the main reason people use it is to lower their blood sugar. That was the initial way they discovered the compound, and then they realized in these clinical trials that these participants were losing weight. Like they were dropping body fat and muscle, which we'll get to shortly. They were losing weight, and it was pretty dramatic in terms of how potent the effects are. Now, just bear in mind, Ozempic is not a pill. It has to be injected. So it's a once a week injection. And the way in which Ozempic works to combat weight gain or to help to facilitate weight loss is through a pathway that I'm not a huge fan of, which is it's directly acting on these receptors called these GLP-1 receptors. And basically what they do is they regulate appetite. So what happens is when people use Ozempic, what it can actually do, one of its mechanisms, is that it can actually freeze the stomach.
What is freezing the stomach?
As in it'll stop it from actually shuttling food down into the small intestine. It's called gastroparesis. So that's one of the ways in which it keeps you full, like it makes you feel full. Another pathway is that it actually can make you like disgusted by food. So it can actually trick your nervous system and trick your brain into perceiving food as not pleasurable and not satisfying. So it artificially blunts the appetite signals and makes you feel full, and it physically, mechanically stops food from going down.
So that's how people lose weight, right? So essentially Ozempic is just supporting a calorie deficit. And that's why people are losing weight, because your appetite is suppressed and you don't feel like you need to eat as much. So you're eating lesser quantities or, just less food or calories throughout the day. And therefore you're losing weight because of that. So you're telling me about like how it freezes your stomach and it blocks, or it creates this like perception where you don't want to eat food, or you're disgusted towards food, or whatever it may be, which stops you from eating or eating less. What happens if you get off Ozempic? Do you still feel the same way? Like, is it something that will change long term, or is it really just when you are taking Ozempic that you're feeling these effects?
Yeah, so the rebound weight gain that a lot of clients or people that use Ozempic experience is phenomenal. Like it's a huge percentage of people that stop taking Ozempic, their appetite signaling can go like the complete opposite.
Ooh.
Like they become like ravenous. They're just like just want to eat everything in the pantry. Like their entire appetite regulatory system is like dysfunctional. There is another effect that's happened in a subset of the population where in some people, the blunting of the pleasure response from the food is still an issue even after stopping. So for some people, they also report like they don't get that same nourishment or that same pleasure from the food that they once did, which is pretty interesting. But if you look at like statistics on weight loss, I mean, I'm sure you've seen like it's a huge percentage of people that rebound or end up gaining more weight when they go on a diet.
It's 95% of people that lose weight actually rebound. And that's because essentially what they say is that people that manage to maintain their weight have particular characteristics that I guess for them is like they look at their life and who they are as a different person, and they're like, well, this is who I am now, and I will continue to strive to be this person. So they're no longer who they used to be. And I think the problem with weight loss and why people rebound, one is like the method. It's not sustainable. And so it's not something that they can do for the rest of their life. So they're like, oh, I'm just going to cut carbs, or I'm going to do a quick fix, whatever it may be, essentially cut your calories. And then they'll do it for a period of time. It's very periodic. And quite restrictive. And as soon as they get to their goal weight, they think that they can just go back to eating normal. But what they don't realize is that their metabolism has adapted. And so if you go and start to consume a higher amount of calories overnight and you've not essentially reversed your way back into it, you will start to put on the weight quite significantly, if not the amount that you lost, possibly more. And so really only 5% of people actually maintain their weight loss. So for me, I don't know how much you know about me, Lucas. I actually lost 30 kilos over 10 years ago. Wow. And I am one of the 5%.
You're in the top 5%.
I'm in the 5%. But I think about, my journey and how I've maintained this. And it's because throughout my weight loss journey, I did it in a way that I knew I could sustain for the rest of my life. So it was like I embedded these habits, these eating habits and this lifestyle that I enjoyed, but also were better for me. So, little smart swaps, making better choices throughout my day that essentially allowed me to become healthier. So I didn't look at it as like, oh, I'm only going to do it for 12 weeks. I looked at it as like, this is now my life and this is who I am as a person. And I need to ensure that I enjoy it so that I can sustain this way of like living. So I've got a question for you. And it definitely wasn't on my question list. So you're probably like, well, what is she going to ask me? Okay. Have you actually ever tried Ozempic yourself?
No. Out of all the different compounds.
Because you've tried everything apparently. So I'm just curious.
No, because I'm fearful of the gastroparesis, like that stomach freezing effect. And I'd actually worry that I'd get run down, like really physically run down, because what would happen is if I took Ozempic, this is what I would suspect would happen. I would lose weight. I'd probably lose a little bit of body fat.
And you're a great weight now. You wouldn't want to lose anything.
So if I took it, I would probably lose a bit of like weight. I would also notice that I would be still wanting to train really hard, still wanting to perform really hard at work and do all that, but I won't have the calorie intake to match my level of output. Yeah. So what would happen is after like 4 or 5 days of usage, I can almost guarantee that I'd get sick, like actually like immune compromised, because I'd be like pushing super hard, but then not refeeding and refueling. And then I think my perception on food would just change, which I don't want. I actually don't want to manipulate my perception of food. I don't want to do that. Like
it blows my mind because food should be enjoyed, and it saddens me that people can go for dinner or lunch or just sit in front of a meal and just be like and just have this like oh, it's not enjoyable anymore. Like food is for celebration, it's excitement, it plays such a big part in our life, and I love food so much that I would never want that taken away from me because it's a big part of like who I am and my life and my lifestyle. Like there's nothing better than like going to a restaurant and experience a great service, great food, like you taste something and you're like, this is just great. I'm a massive foodie. Imagine having that taken away from you. Like that is so sad.
Yeah. I also forgot to mention before, when doctors prescribe the medication, they warn the patient that it's potentially a medication they'll have to stay on for a very, very long time. So it's almost like a lifelong commitment to a drug that's going to cost, I don't know, what is it, like $120, $130 a month or something like that in Australia.
I thought it was more.
It's probably 100, I don't know, 160.
I thought it was like $500, but I think I could be so wrong. I actually was going to ask you about that. So, we speak about what happens if you come off Ozempic, so you can potentially rebound because you regain your appetite plus potentially more. Yeah. So is Ozempic something that someone can take for the rest of their life?
So we don't have long enough clinical trials to determine proper safety profile in terms of like beyond like 10 to 15 years. So that's a big unknown. There is one risk that's like mentioned in the literature, which is an increased risk of developing thyroid cancer. That is actually mentioned a few times. Like if you have a patient that's had like issues with their thyroid or like, and if we look at the thyroid and the function of the thyroid gland, like that is like the rate regulator of your metabolism. So that's potential damage, long-term damage to that thyroid gland, where some people are developing like, potential like thyroid cancer and things like that.
Wow. Okay, I did not know about that, but that's so intense. So what's the latest research on Ozempic showing now, and what is clinical trial research suggest? Yeah,
so majority of the research now on Ozempic is purely focused on the reduction in your fasting blood glucose. and also something known as your HbA1c, which is your, it's like a 3-month measure of your blood sugar levels. And what they've noticed in the literature is that Ozempic does a very good job at bringing those levels down. So it definitely works. Most likely due to the fact that participants are just not eating. Like if they went on like a pretty extreme like fasting type diet, or like they deliberately fasted 16 hours a day, or let's say 14 hours a day, 5 days a week, they would probably see reductions in their blood glucose. They'd probably see reductions in their HbA1c and probably reductions in cholesterol, triglycerides, and things like that. But we're learning more that these GLP-1 receptors, which is how Ozempic works, it targets these like specific receptors. That these receptors are actually found not just in the stomach and the brain; they're actually found in the heart, in the kidneys, in the lungs, in skeletal muscle, and they actually regulate a lot of other functions in the body. It's not just for appetite. So if we look at like the literature on GLP-1 agonists, a lot of them are actually, like if we look at compounds and different foods that can stimulate GLP-1, a lot of these compounds are associated with greater health span and longevity. So it's a beneficial thing to actually activate these receptors, but I think doing it with a sniper rifle like Ozempic, which is like extremely, like really potent in terms of its effect, is just too brutal for the body, for the average person. For someone who's extremely obese, who just can't even get at it, like they can't do any exercise, and they need a bit of a kickstarter, that's where Ozempic can be a catalyst. Like it can facilitate potentially progressing them towards like good habits. That's, I think, where Ozempic really shines, is sort of in those individuals.
Yeah. That does take me to my next question. Is Ozempic a substitute for good nutrition and exercise?
Absolutely not. I'm a naturopath, so like I studied nutrition and herbal medicine very well, and we know that like if we're looking at healthy weight loss, we need to be focusing on optimizing nutrition, optimizing lifestyle, managing stress, getting good quality sleep. Like these components are going to lead to better health in the long run. And obviously they're a lot more sustainable. So I think like thinking that you can use Ozempic without changing your diet and or lifestyle is just, it's not really doing yourself many favors.
Well, people just want a quick fix, right? People want a solution that gave to them yesterday. And so if there's an easy alternative like Ozempic that's out there that essentially gives them that, why wouldn't they take it?
Yeah.
And so talk us through why it's important to, if someone is on Ozempic, why it's important to pair it with good nutrition and exercise.
Yeah, so what happens is if an individual decides to use Ozempic and then they combine that with like, really good exercise protocols and eating really healthily, the results are going to be synergistic. It's going to amplify the results significantly. Why is that? Because we're focusing on other methods and strategies to optimize general insulin sensitivity, like whole body insulin sensitivity. And that's probably going to lead to other favorable effects on their health beyond just weight loss. Like remember that the goal for optimal health, in my opinion, and like what I consider as like the true definition of health, is a state of complete abundance. Like you're feeling heaps of energy, you're feeling like great, you can power through your day with heaps of vitality and things like that. So definitely need to combine good nutrition and lifestyle as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what, like from your experience and your knowledge, are you an advocate for Ozempic? Like where do you stand when it comes to Ozempic? Are you like yes? Are you like no? Are you neutral? Like where are you when it comes to Ozempic in terms of recommendation?
Yes, I'm definitely not anti Ozempic. I think there's a time and place, as with most medications, there's always context. It's context dependent. I think the patient should do a very good job before they go into that, like before they start using Ozempic. It's important to analyze the pros and the cons. Like we need to look at it from like a very balanced perspective, a balanced view, and think, hang on a second, like, is this really the way in which I want to lose weight? Or do I want to maybe focus on some other strategies, like focusing on eating meals that I actually enjoy, that are sustainable, that are within my caloric limit? Like, maybe that's a different pathway. But I think for those individuals that are like really stuck and they're like at rock bottom, they're really struggling, then I think Ozempic can be a pretty powerful catalyst alongside
That kickstart.
Yeah.
But it doesn't replace
No.
good nutrition and exercise in your day.
Mm.
So with your clientele, have you ever had any of your clients actually take Ozempic and report to you on it? So what was your first client experience with Ozempic?
Yeah, so I had a client who was 155 kilos, so quite heavy in that regard, like for his height, and like we pretty much exhausted all the different natural methods, like the different natural supplements, the different exercise regimes. We put him on a pretty strict diet, but he wasn't really noticing much of a difference in terms of his like fat loss.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Was he actually sticking to the diet?
I didn't have a good enough rapport with the client to know truly deep down whether or not he was. So it's a great question, because people, when they report back on their how many calories did you have for the day, is it like they underestimate?
By 50%. It's wild.
50%.
It's wild. People are like, oh, I barely eat. And then it's like, okay, well, tell me about your day. And then they're like, oh, I had a coffee. I had like an oat latte, which is like 100 and something calories with honey. And then I skipped breakfast, and then for lunch I had this salad, and it had this creamy dressing with avocado and salmon and blah, 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 right? You're already looking at like 700 to 800 calories. And then I had a handful of nuts, and I picked at this and I picked at that. And then I just had dinner, and dinner was like, probably a really fatty piece of meat, which is fine, but it's high in calories with sweet potato drenched in olive oil and blah, blah, blah. And then I just finished it off with dark chocolate. I may have had a few more coffees in there. And it's like, okay, well, you're probably at close to 2,000 calories. And people are like, but I barely eat. And I'm only eating 1,200 calories. But a lot of people underestimate. So do you think that he could have potentially not been sticking to the diet, hence why he wasn't seeing the results?
Yeah, and also I think he's definitely got that mindset of like wanting a quick fix, like that short-term mindset.
Why do you think as humans we want that? Why do we think like that?
Humans will always try to seek the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And it's because it's the dopamine like wiring system in our brain. It's all about like survival and just trying to self-gratify and just optimize our pleasure systems. But I think in his case, he heard about it on the news. He mentioned it to me, and he said to me, I didn't tell him don't take it, because it's his, I don't prescribe, I'm a naturopath, like I can't prescribe, medicines. But I said to him, like, you know what, if your doctor gives you the script, go for it, like see how you go. He did lose weight, like he did end up losing a fair bit of weight.
Tell me about how his eating changed during this time.
Well, we already had in place a pretty good, like we had sort of foods that he was like happy to consume consistently, like plenty of like meat and fish and different like healthy carbohydrate sources. Like he was pretty good in that regard. I think during that period though, he just noticed that he couldn't eat as bigger portions as usual. So his portion size just decreased significantly. So in that case, it was a pretty good catalyst.
What happened to him when he got off Ozempic?
Too scared to ask now.
That's the most important question. It's not how much weight did he lose, it's what happened after he got off Ozempic.
Well, because Australia at one stage there was a shortage.
Yeah.
So you could imagine the globe, like the nationwide increase in body weight during that shortage would have been insane.
I have so many questions. Like every time you talk, I'm just like, oh, there's another question that I want to ask, but I don't want to interrupt what you're currently talking about. So I'm just going to be springing a lot of questions on you. So back to the whole like quick fix. We want something that can happen overnight, essentially. Tell me what I guess, what happens in the instance where someone loses weight quite rapidly? What is the effects of that? So like what actually happens if, like, say you have, person A who loses 10 kilos in 3 to 4 weeks versus person B who loses 10 kilos over like 6 to 10 months. Tell me what actually what that actually means to the body, and is it better to lose it quicker or slower and so on? Let's touch on that topic.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I've always been more towards the gradual weight loss as being a more sustainable option. The reason for that is because if we do rapid weight loss, what can happen is not many people really talk about this, but what happens is the body, when it degrades and breaks down like these fat cells, it actually, a lot of the body's toxins and like heavy metals and toxins, they actually store inside these fat cells. So when you rapidly lose weight, you're liberating these toxins and heavy metals into your bloodstream, and that can increase the burden on the overall on the body overall, and that can lead to just feelings of like fatigue and just difficulties with like their immune system. Whereas if we do more of a gradual weight loss, like you said, like a 6 to 10 month like long haul sort of stint, the liver doesn't cop it as much, and so the body is better able to like slowly shift the body into more of a sustainable physique that's most appropriate for them. So I'd say like from a like which direction is better, I'd say the gradual, progressive incremental weight loss is going to be better for the body.
What about when we actually think of like fat loss versus weight loss? Does the length of time determine that? So are you more likely to burn through more muscle if you try and do it quickly? Are you just losing water mass? What is the difference when it comes to that when we look at the length of time to lose weight?
Yeah, so it's normal for an individual to lose about a quarter of their. So if we look at the total weight loss, let's say it's like 10 kilos you've lost, it's pretty normal that most people can see up to a quarter of that like weight loss being muscle mass. In the Ozempic studies, this is crazy. The Ozempic studies, some of the participants lost up to 50% of their muscle mass from the total weight that they lost.
You know what's also really crazy? Because just to touch on like the rebound, do you know much about the rebound rates off Ozempic? Like, have you dived into any of the studies?
The rebound weight gain after?
Yeah.
It's still very, very high. It's like 60 to 70%.
Because you know what, like as you would know, so say you've got person A who weighs 70 kilos and person B who also weighs 70 kilos, but the body composition is very different. So person A holds a lot more muscle than person B. Person A has a higher BMR than person B because of just muscle ultimately is burning more calories, right? Burning more energy. So say you've got these Ozempic patients or Ozempic users and they're burning through, the weight that they lose is 50% muscle. The end result is going to put them in a state where their BMR is a lot lower than what it would normally be because they have less muscle. So that's why, just for our listeners, why people really emphasize the importance of strength training and building muscle, because, it's so important, like particularly like just through like your weight loss journey, but also in your body composition, muscle just overall is just much better than obviously having fat in your body. But it just allows you to burn more calories at rest, which is really important. So if this person that, took Ozempic, if, say we look at their two journeys that they could go on, journey A is Ozempic, journey B is no Ozempic, and it would allow them to lose the same amount of weight. And journey B, they maintain 25% more muscle than what they would taking Ozempic. They get to the same body weight at the end. Their BMR and end outcome actually is a lot better than if they went down the Ozempic path.
100%. And then also if you look at the beneficial effects of maintaining muscle mass from a longevity perspective, Like to live a long, healthy life, muscle mass is one of the most important factors. Like you've got that VO2 max, which you've probably heard of, which is like, do you remember doing the beep test back at high school?
Oh, I hated that. I hated it every time they were like, we're doing the beep test. I'm like, I'm not going to school today.
Yeah. That's like a measure of your VO2 max.
Yeah.
And then the other one is like grip strength, or like, I don't know if you've done that test where you have to squeeze that as hard as you can. That is important. So that's why, like, if you look at those that are in their like 70s to 80s, like one of the biggest reasons why they get really sick is if they have a fall, right? Like if they have a fall, you know, they go into hospital, their chances of complications goes up.
Yeah.
That's why like we want to maintain muscle mass as we age, and like let's do whatever we can. Like it's funny, you look at like if you have a look at like Western medicine, we have prescriptions for losing fat, like let's say, you know, Ozempic or semaglutide, the actual drug, to help with fat loss. You've got other things like Duramine and other stimulants and other things like that. But it's funny, we don't have anything we can't technically prescribe anything to build muscle. I just think the system's a little bit weird in that way. Like, why can't, if we know that muscle is important for longevity, why don't we have, if like, for example, like men that want to get on testosterone replacement therapy, they just make it so difficult. You know, it's just ridiculous.
It's so interesting because I think what people don't realize is the decisions that you make today can affect in 20, 30 years. And so these are actually things that you need to consider when you look ahead into your future because, you know, if you're burning through so much muscle, what does that actually mean for you? Your health, you know, where you are when you're like 70, 80, like what does that actually mean for your body composition, your strength, you know, just your longevity and everything. So it's really interesting. What are the side effects of taking Ozempic? Like I know we spoke about the stomach freezing, which I'm still like, I'm scared about. But like that, like what else? Like what does someone actually feel when they take Ozempic? Are there any side effects?
Yeah, there's also like a little bit of like nausea. So like when they first start taking Ozempic, a lot of people will experience like nausea, potentially like vomiting in extreme cases. Some people experience like weird like IBS type symptoms or GI distress. And I mean, if you look at like what percentage of people are struggling with gut issues these days, like it's almost every second person complains about.
Everyone complains about gut issues. Yeah.
So the other thing we haven't really looked at is, well, what I'd be curious to know more about, and we just don't have the data on it, is how it affects the microbiome. That's going to be very interesting over the next like 2 to 3 years. Let's hope that there's some data that comes out on how it affects the gut bacteria, because that's all we talk about as a naturopath is like, oh, how's your poop? How's your gut health? Like,
all the fun conversations. Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, what do you think the impacts on mental health are when taking Ozempic? Because we spoke about what it could mean for like your weight loss, muscle mass, potentially we don't know about gut health yet. But what do you think the effects are on your mental health?
Well, I think the biggest one is what you mentioned before, which is like on social outings or social occasions. Like let's say you're at a dinner for like there's let's say you got a group of like 6 people out for dinner, you're with your friends or whatever, and you're not feeling included, like because you don't have the appetite to eat, or you deliberately have only ordered like a starter and maybe like a small salad, and like people will then potentially perceive you as like, oh, what are you doing? Why aren't you eating? Like you'll cop that quite a lot. So I think that can have a negative effect on mental health, you know, like feeling excluded. And then perception of food, I think that's going to really affect like the way that, you know, the way that people, you know, perceive food and their relationship with food. So from a mental health perspective, there's that side. And then of course, like if you end up losing a lot of weight on Ozempic, it can have the opposite effect. Like it can actually boost your mental health because, you know, you've dropped body fat, you're feeling better about yourself. Like it could go both ways. So I think it depends on the individual.
Yeah, I think like where my concerns lie with Ozempic use and mental health is when someone is, you know, a normal weight range, a healthy weight for their height. And they choose to take Ozempic because they're like, I want to lose 2 to 5 kilos. I just want to tighten things up, you know. And so they see people are talking about Ozempic. It's trending. It's in the news. It's on social media, whatever. And they start taking it. And then they start to have this warped perception of what they actually look like. And so they just go that little bit further. Oh, I'll just lose another kilo, because it's easy.
Yeah.
It's, you know, quick, and I'm dropping weight. I've never been this size before. I've gone from a size 8 to a size 6, and, you know, why not just to lose a little bit more? I have seen very thin women, like most recently, that are taking Ozempic. And I just think, like, when it comes to, you know, self-love and just perception and just like body image, I think that it can impact it quite significantly, because I remember even going through my own weight loss journey, it becomes addictive. Yeah. So like taking that first step and seeing that first kilo is always your motivator. You become, a lot of motivation sparks from actually seeing progress. And I can understand why Ozempic is a good kickstart for those that are overweight or obese that can't just get it right. They just can't take that first step. So I understand, because when you do take that first step, you keep going, because you're like, oh, I've lost a kilo. My clothes are fitting better. I feel better. My energy, my mood. You become addicted to that feeling. But also on the other side is you become addicted to losing weight. And I have seen that, you know, online, where women have just taken it too far and they've become extremely thin, and because of the use of Ozempic. And for me, I look at that, and that's where I believe mental health is affected, because it's accessible. It's not really regulated right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's really not regulated, which makes it quite dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's easily accessible, and it can make women or men as well have this warped perception of their body image, which can result to them being extremely unhealthy.
Oh, absolutely. And then also, like, if they have to only lose like 2 to 5 kilos, they are not the right people to be using as it. Like, that's not the right.
But that's who the users are, right?
Yeah. Well, that for me, that doesn't make, that's not an appropriate.
Yeah.
It's not even like they won't prescribe it for that, like, because there's a chance that they don't even have type 2 diabetes. But I just, not a fan of that at all.
Why do you think there was a shortage in Australia? No, but you see celebrities taking it.
Yeah.
And they're endorsing it and they're talking about it. And these celebrities may not be
true.
Very, you know, they may not be like heavy celebrities. They may just be your normal body type. But then when you see your favorite person endorsing this product and saying like, I take it and whatever, and I've lost weight, or there's been news reports, or it's been leaked, or whatever, it's what people are going to essentially start doing. And it's like what we said about the quick fix. Yeah. Oh, I just want to lose 5 kilos, so I'm just going to take Ozempic. It's easier. But it's not, really, is it really easier? I don't know. So let's like touch on the whole GLP-1.
Yep.
So what is it exactly? I know you touched on it lightly, but I just want to dive into GLP-1 specifically. Tell me about what it is and what stimulates the production of GLP-1.
So GLP-1 stands for glucagon-like peptide, and the body, we are all producing it on a daily basis. So we're all naturally producing this hormone, but Ozempic or semaglutide is basically, it works on the same receptors as the body's own hormone GLP. So it's a GLP-1 agonist, which means that it binds to the same receptors in the human body. Now, as I said before, these GLP receptors are actually found all throughout the body. It can have some effects on the heart. It can have some effects on the brain. It's actually highly beneficial for the brain, like improving, memory, and is highly neuroprotective. In terms of ways to actually stimulate GLP-1 production or GLP-1 activity naturally, well, this is where we come back to the types of foods that you eat on a daily basis. And there's some and even teas as well. In fact, there's a South American tea, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, yerba mate.
Is it yummy?
It's similar to like green tea. It's got that it's more of a smoky flavor. But yerba mate tea actually can stimulate the production of GLP-1 naturally.
Wow.
And this is very well demonstrated in the research and the literature. Again, but not many
Yerba
people.
mate. So for any listeners out there,
Hopefully it doesn't get sold out. All Coles and Woolies are going to have to stock up on.
is there anything else that can stimulate the production of GLP-1, like any other foods or things that we can do?
Yeah, so some of the polyphenols that are found in like blueberries, avocados and walnuts, like these certain foods have some beneficial effects on the gut bacteria, and the gut bacteria can actually influence the production of GLP-1. This is a reason why we say, this is why gut health is so important, because it can actually regulate metabolism, and now we're seeing the link between your gut bacteria and, fat loss.
Interesting. I think I need to get you on for another episode to talk about gut health. I feel like it's such another big topic that people are talking about. So blueberries, avocado, walnuts, guys. There you go. That's exactly what you need to start including into your diet. What other hormones regulate appetite?
Yeah, so this is important to understand. There's a few other hormones. We'll just sort of skim through them. First of all, we have leptin, which is that regulates satiety as well. Ghrelin actually makes you very hungry. We have insulin. We have neuropeptide Y, which is found in the brain. We have adrenaline to a degree, can influence appetite. And then also cortisol. So cortisol can have an influence on our appetite regulation and signaling. And when we look at these, like if we look at like, for example, exercise, we know that exercise is great for healthy, sustainable weight loss. Exercise actually influences not just GLP-1, but many other appetite regulating hormones. So it's more of like a shotgun approach rather than just like a sniper rifle. Let's just focus on GLP-1.
Is there anything else that you would recommend? So if someone is like, well, I just want to regulate my appetite, I can't stop eating. So are there any, what are your 3 top tips?
First of all, increasing the intake of a certain type of fiber. There's a particular fiber that I absolutely love, and it's not psyllium husks. I know psyllium husks they're very popular. They're good, but there's a better fiber out there, and it's called partially hydrolyzed guar gum, PHGG. This PHGG, if I put a teaspoon in this water bottle, let's say I put like 3 teaspoons in this water bottle, and I shook it up, and it would fully dissolve, and you wouldn't even know it's there. And you've just added 15 grams of fiber to your water.
Wow.
Yeah. And
where do we get that?
That's very easy to find online.
So not from Woolies or Coles?
Unfortunately, no.
We want quick, accessible solutions. So how do you spell that again? The fiber?
So it's PHGG.
PHGG fiber.
Yeah, PHGG fiber is
Cool.
You can honestly, I've put that in my smoothies. I've literally put it in.
Does it taste like anything?
No taste. 0 taste. And imagine it's in there, you wouldn't even know.
And what are the benefits?
It increases the growth of bifidobacteria, so literally feeds beneficial bacteria in your gut. It would have an appetite regulatory effect, probably not directly, but indirectly. And then this is like a bonus side effect. It gives you ghost wipes. Are you familiar with ghost wipes? A ghost wipe is when you...
Oh, goodness. I feel like I know exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead. Tell the listeners what a ghost wipe is.
It's a perfect stool. You get a perfect poop, which means that you won't even need to wipe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go, guys. What are your other top 2 tips?
For...
Just if someone is looking to just regulate their appetite.
Focus on, the most important thing is we haven't even spoken about protein, but protein needs to be discussed here because protein is one of the most satiating macronutrients
Absolutely.
there is. And most people, in particular women, undereat protein.
Significantly.
Like it's a huge, huge factor. And if we're looking at muscle growth, and if you're training hard, you need protein. You need protein for healthy bones, for healthy muscles, for repairing the gut lining. But I'd say a quick little this is actually a biohack is if you've got a piece of, let's say you've got a plate that has chicken, rice and broccoli, I would recommend consuming the carbohydrate portion at the end of your meal. So go for the protein. Try and have the protein portion first.
Why?
Because I have seen numerous studies demonstrating the beneficial effect on what happens if you pre-feed with the protein portion first. It leads to a lower blood sugar spike, which is so awesome because, like, I mean, who doesn't want it? Basically translates to, okay, if you're going to have less blood sugar spikes, you're going to have more energy, you're going to have less insulin, less insulin resistance, less PCOS, less hormonal issues.
Less of all of the things we don't want.
Exactly. So I'd say chicken or meat, fish or whatever, any protein first. That means if you order a burger, I don't know how you're going to go about that, but you pull the...
No, just eat the burger. Just eat the burger. But you know what? I naturally do this anyways because if I have like a piece of salmon or like a piece of like chicken or whatever and potatoes, I'm like, I'm just going to eat my protein first and keep the carbs last because they taste the fun at the end.
Yes.
So it's actually got some benefits as well.
Yes.
And any other tips?
Probably like, I think another one is like hydration.
Yes,
I think a lot
so
of people
important.
just
Mistake hunger for thirst.
Yeah. But even like just...
Sorry, I just got that wrong. Mistake thirst for hunger.
Yeah.
I just said mistake hunger for thirst. Mistake thirst for hunger.
So the big component here though is try not to drink tap water, particularly in Australia. Like, it's full of fluoride and...
You did something about fluoride. Okay, so my boyfriend is all about like, your toothpaste is not good because it has fluoride. And then I showed him that I was interviewing you and he went on your profile and you said something about fluoride. And he's like, I'm buying you fluoride-free toothpaste now. And so he like takes me to the supermarket and I've actually been using toothpaste that doesn't have fluoride in it for the last 3 weeks. And it actually, like apparently fluoride just affects your mental clarity and just like your brain function.
Fluoride is a pretty well-known neurotoxin.
Yeah.
So it can actually...
I actually feel different. Weird.
Yeah.
You're probably like, Amal, you're going crazy. But like I feel different. And he's going to listen to this episode and be like, I told you.
Yeah. So that's like if you look at tap water or drinking tap water, like it's pretty high in fluoride and other heavy metals and stuff.
Yeah.
But also to add to that is to like add a bit of Celtic sea salt to your water because that can help with the adrenals, the adrenal glands, and help with like cortisol secretion, preventing burnout and fatigue. Just try not to underestimate the impact of hydration.
Interesting. So many great tips. So many great tips that you can apply literally tomorrow, which I think is awesome because for us in this podcast, we just want to ensure that we deliver content and information to our listeners that they can just help improve their day-to-day that is simple and easy as well. And I feel like you've just provided so many of them in this podcast. So to wrap it up, I have my last question. Looking back at the journey you've been on, what's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self about finding balance and fulfillment in both health and life?
Yeah, I'd say don't underestimate the impact of healthy like friendship groups and social connection. Because if I reflect back on my youth and when I was a lot younger, I used to think that all I had to do was just work really hard and just drown myself in like building my company, creating content, filming videos. And if I like compared my like mental health compared to how it is today, where I've got like an enormous social circle and great friendship groups, like don't underestimate the impact of like, good social groups and social connection.
Wow. That's a really great answer. No one has actually mentioned anything about their network and who they surround themselves with. I think that's a really great answer because it's so right. You're not on this journey alone. And so being around the right people and just ensuring you get that dose amongst like your very busy schedule, because it can get really isolating and we can become very tunnel vision and very focused, and you're just like, I just want to get there and nothing else matters, and you forget about your social life, your friends and your family. But it's so important to also get those doses of your social life in. I really like that answer. So I think that's it. I think just a really great episode. Thank you so much, Lucas, for joining me. I'm sure there was so much that our listeners can take from this episode, and definitely need to get you back because there is a lot more that we can talk about, particularly when it comes to gut health.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Amal, and looking forward to the podcast release.
Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Chew on This. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I loved being a part of it, and I'll see you at our next one.